As we've covered, looking around the world, it's becoming increasingly likely Australia may be dragged into a conflict sooner rather than later. So it's never been more important to focus on the welfare of those who put on a uniform and defend this nation. Today marks 5 years since the opening ceremony of the Invictus Games in Sydney, the sporting event for wounded, injured and sick servicemen and women. Australian chairman and veteran James Brown joins me now. James, great to see you. Our soldiers, airmen and sailors would be on high alert right now, you'd imagine, James.
Look, there's no shortage of threats around the world, whether it's in the Middle East, whether it's in our near region, whether it's preparing for contingencies in the South China Sea. So we've always got lots of Australians abroad and here thinking about the worst case scenario.
Why does Invictus matter? Why do we have to care so much when our people come home?
Look, for a long time we didn't have the right mechanisms in place, particularly for people who'd served in Iraq and Afghanistan over the last decade. We didn't quite appreciate the extent of the difficulties they were facing, issues like defence and veteran suicide, as we've seen through some of the horrific stories that have been in front of the Royal Commission for the last few years. I think the other thing is we didn't have the right mechanisms in place for their families. And what's incredible about Invictus, and particularly Invictus Australia, is the recognition of families, but also inclusion of families in everything that we do. When we take competitors to the Invictus Games, they fly with families and friends. So they're at the heart of the healing that we provide through sport.
Yeah, it's such a good point you raise, because if a loved one is away, particularly in a dangerous place, it is really concerning for a family. If they come home and their family's not in a good place because they've been so concerned and so worried, both groups suffer. One doesn't function well without the other doing well, right?
Look, absolutely. And if we're going to send people into harm's way, they need to know that their families are being looked after, that they're supported. For those that have children, and we've had examples of mothers deploying within weeks of having babies overseas. That's the level of commitment we see from some of our service people. They need to know that they've got that family support, and it's entirely appropriate that when they come back, that's recognised. And this is a tough thing for families to do too. They are here for 6-8 months while their loved one is away. They're stressing on every bit of news they read in the paper, every phone call they get, and the worry never stops for them. So it takes a toll on them as well, and that's something that we recognise through the work that we do.
What's next for Invictus?
Well, we've just had a very successful Games in Dusseldorf. A large number of Australian athletes went over and competed, really achieved all the objectives we wanted to see. We're running national programs, community sports. We've just put on staff in Western Australia and in Victoria, so we've got national reach for the community days that we do. We've got great relationships with the peak sporting bodies, and now we're starting to think, is it time to perhaps have an Invictus Games back in Australia again? The next Invictus Games will be in Canada. Is it the right time for us to think about potentially bringing Invictus back to Australia?
Oh, that would be incredible. Before I let you go, personally for you, do we have any more political tilts in the future? What's next for you?
Yeah, look, that's a career I'm interested in. I have nominated for a Senate position. I'm waiting to find out whether I've been accepted as a candidate. And of course, you can't say much about that, but I care about the country. I care about defence. I care about veterans, and I want to see also that we're doing the right thing for the future as well. So I'm very interested in moving into that career.
Brilliant. James Brown, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it, as always.
Thanks, Erin.